So as y'all can tell by the title of this video, we are going to be talking about taking accountability today. I actually wanted to preface this video with an excerpt from a book that I've been reading. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff About Money. Feel free to sponsor me, Dr. Richard Carlson. But this chapter is called Stay Away from the Blame Game, and I'm just going to read a part of it that I highlighted. We can almost always justify to ourselves why our version of the blame game is valid. But all that does is keep the game going. And in doing so, we move away from the solution, which of course is taking charge of our own lives and our own destiny. This book is amazing. The chapters are literally 1 and 2 pages long. I highly suggest it. But I feel like that's pretty much sums up what I wanted to discuss as far as when you take accountability, how it moves towards the solution of an issue, and it also allows you to take back the power. Because a lot of times when we expel that power, we give it to other people rather than harnessing it ourselves. So y'all know I like to look up the definition of words, and the definition of accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to take account for one's actions. So as I was doing my research about accountability, I actually came across this diagram that contrasted accountability and the blame game. Everything below the line represented low vibrational mindsets like finger pointing, denial, or that's not my job mentality. Everything above the line were steps that can be taken to harness the power of accountability and take back control of your life. The first step to reclaiming that superpower, which that's basically what it is a superpower, is first to see it. I think we've all heard the saying or the notion that if you have an issue in your life, like a drinking problem or an addiction or whatever it is, you first have to admit that you have one. It takes a bit of courage and a humble heart just to take the first step. But taking the first step in life is usually always the hardest, but it's only hard until it becomes like routinely familiar. It's a shame that I know so many people, just amongst my relatives, who have such a hard time taking accountability. They love playing the blame game. It's like they find joy in pointing the finger. My mom, for example, is everybody's favorite scapegoat. A couple of her siblings will bring up something that happened 20 years ago that she had absolutely no involvement in. I had to do time in prison because of Michelle. You had to go to big boy jail because you violated big boy parole and got big boy caught. My wife left me in 2002 because Michelle told her about so-and-so. No, sir. Your wife probably left you because you were toxic, narcissistic, abusive, and a cheater. The most recent one, and this is probably my favorite, my daughter's clothing line didn't make any sales because Michelle put a curse on it. Now, I'm sure if my mom was in the business of black magic, she would not be focused on your daughter's itty bitty clothing line. It was probably because your daughter's fabric was just too itchy. None of these people actually talked to her today, which actually turned out to be a tremendous blessing. Trying to take somebody from the blame game to accountability has to be one of the most exhausting tasks that I've ever witnessed. Most times they just don't want to go. Some people will spend their entire life not even taking that first step just to see it. Because they don't want to see it. Because choosing to see our faults and our mistakes and our bad habits and actually admitting it makes it a reality. And some people just aren't ready to face that and probably never will be. But once it becomes a reality, you have to face it, which moves into the next phase of this step, which is step 2, and that's to own it. Owning up to your mistakes and taking responsibility for the pain or the hurt that you've caused yourself or others actually harnesses that power and reclaims that energy even more. You're able to Take a step back and assess the situation objectively and say, I may have caused this or I may have contributed to this. This assessment takes you out of victimhood and puts you in a place where you're able to tackle the issue at hand. This is especially true if you were the cause of someone else's pain or hurt. An apology is so simple and goes a long way, and it doesn't have to be as daunting or taxing as most people make it be. For example, in 2017, one of my half-brothers texted me and my brother accusing me, my mom, my stepdad, and him of some false accusations that never happened. So I did the mature thing and I actually picked up the phone rather than responding by text because I didn't want nothing to get lost in translation. Plus, arguing over text is just like juvenile to me. He actually answered the phone, but it ended up being a short conversation which went nowhere, and then he hung up on me. So I called my dad, who I've always had this on and off relationship with, just to figure out what was going on in my brother's head and try to get some clarity, because he has a better relationship with him than I do. That was a big mistake. My dad starts talking to me reckless. He doesn't let me get a single word in. After he cussed me into oblivion, he hung up on me too. Even with all the mess that I had dealt with in my childhood and all the bullying, he had never done nothing like that to me personally, so it took me by surprise. I continued to think about that phone call probably once a week for a while. So I questioned myself for so long after that, like, why did I call him in the first place? How could I have prevented it? Was the stuff he was saying actually true? So a year goes by and I continue to process the hurt, but the hurt wasn't like gone. It was still there a little bit. So I wanted an apology from him. I didn't really care to get one from my half brother because I don't really have a relationship with him anyways, and I didn't really care to get an apology. So I'm sitting on my bed one night and I decided to call my dad. I instantly got the bubble guts as soon as I picked up the phone, and I actually started shaking. It's amazing how the body keeps the score, because all I could think about was how he made me feel the last time I had talked to him. And I just was praying that that same thing wouldn't happen again. So he answers the phone on like the third ring and immediately starts going on a tangent like he always does about what he's learned on YouTube, what he's read in articles and stuff like that. So when it gets to my turn, I start telling him about the anxiety that I've been experiencing and about how our last conversation left me feeling. He begins to cut me off immediately and goes straight into denial. If you remember the diagram, it falls below, which is low vibrational, into the blame game area. So I start to shut down. He's aggressively over-talking me, doesn't let me get a word in, and I start to feel worse than I did before. Long story short, he hangs up in my face again. I call my brother upstairs, tell him to call him, and then he hangs up on him too. I burst into tears of sadness, disappointment, regrets, and just flat out rage. We fast forward another year, I want to say 2019, and I get a random phone call from him, which only lasted about 2 minutes, and he called and started to apologize to me and my brother. Even though the conversation only lasted about 2 minutes, I could tell that he was nervous because this wasn't something that he was used to doing. My dad is a very prideful, stern man who believes what he believes and sticks to his guns no matter what. He also briefly mentioned that he had been in counseling or talking to somebody trying to unlearn some things that he was taught at a young age and how he grew up, which is something that we never really discussed. So I was actually low-key proud of him for doing that. That 2-minute conversation may have taken a whole year, but it was exactly what I needed. It's truly, truly amazing how far just a simple apology can go. Even though I don't talk to my dad still, and I haven't talked to him since that conversation years ago, I don't replay the conversation before that in my head. I don't have the same regrets, and I don't think about how it made me feel like I was doing every other week before that. Nobody is above apologizing. You may be listening to this story right now, and you may be thinking of somebody that you've hurt, that you've caused pain to, that you've cheated on, and you have just moved on, and then they have gone on with their life, probably carrying that hurt and probably hurting other people in the process. Own up to what you did and reach out. It doesn't matter how long it's been, and watch what happens. Not just for them too, but for you. Like, get that guilt up out of you. Life is just too short, and people is dying every day, so don't wait till it's too late, because you may never get the chance again. Phase 3 of this whole discussion is actually solving the problem. Once we admit that there is a problem and we own up to it, then we move into solving the issue. It may sound strange, but I like to believe that the solution is actually in the problem. Do y'all remember the quadratic formula in high school? You know, the formula that nobody thinks about no more or put into use unless they became an astronaut? Yeah, that formula. Anyways, the quadratic formula was used to solve quadratic equations. In short, all you had to do was plug in the numbers from the quadratic problem into the quadratic formula. The numbers were already given to you. The process may take some time, which problem solving usually does, but if you follow the formula through and through, you will find the answer to X every time. Now, I'm not just trying to say that there is some magic formula in the cosmos that will just solve every problem that you have. No. But I am saying that if you examine your life close enough and use introspection, you'll realize that the solution isn't out there. It's actually within you. You may be the problem of why your life has gone down the drain, but that also means that you are the solution to get yourself out of the drain. That makes you the quadratic formula. I have never met a single soul who didn't have at least one issue that they were facing at a time in my entire life. As we get older, those issues may intensify and you may even be presented with more issues. We get hit with problems at work. As I started growing in the family business, my workload increased. I was making deliveries, I was doing the billing and insurance, I was seeing patients at the office, I started managing employees, which actually can cause a lot of stress, especially when they are not qualified or competent employees. We get hit with health problems. This ain't just physical challenges, but also mental ones as well. When I graduated high school, my mental health took a deep dive. And this was when mental health wasn't really talked about, like at all. As you get older, your body don't heal as fast as it used to from injuries or setbacks and relapses, or just even eating fast food. We also get hit with relationship problems, and this can be romantic or platonic. Anytime you choose to do life with somebody, you gon' hit some bumps in the road. It's not all peaches and cream 24/7. This can be especially hard when you're just two different people or you're just in two completely different places. But whatever the problem is or whatever the category, there is a solution. Your problem at work may just be pushing you out of that job into your own passion, something that you love to do, calling you out of that workplace into your own business venture. The solution to your health problems may be pushing you to go on a diet, get into the gym, or go see a therapist. The issues in your relationship may be trying to help you with your communication skills or to tackle some character defects that may be going on to help you develop your character better. The process to finding the necessary solutions to your specific problems may be trial and error. You got to find what works for you. Solving the quadratic equation will help you just become all the more wiser and also help the people coming up behind you. So don't be stingy with the formula, Mr. Krabs. Okay, so now that you've seen it and you've owned it and you found a solution, the last step is to do it. There has now officially been a paradigm shift from victimhood to taking full responsibility. And you must commit to doing it if you want to see maximum results. Commit to staying above the line, even if it means starting back over at the acknowledgement phase. You still above the line. Don't let your problems define you or idolize them. Once you move from that place of victimhood and you really start to take ownership of your life and your life choices, I don't think we realize just how easier and more enjoyable life becomes. The people that I named earlier, like my relatives who I've seen play the blame game and point the finger and all of that, I look at their lives and I pity them. There is nothing inspiring about them at all. And I'm not just trying to down them just because of what they used to do to my mom or still do. It's just that I really, if you look at it on paper, their lives versus the lives who take ownership, you would completely discard this and focus on the ones that have true ownership, that are living joyful and fruitful lives. One thing I've noticed over the last few years is that me and my brother take accountability well, but you can also take too much accountability. You get hard on yourself. And I have been told that so many times. You need to let go. You're too hard on yourself. You need to forgive yourself. It's something that I'm constantly having to work on, but honestly, I would rather have that issue than the issue of just blaming everything on everybody else. There's a healthy balance that we all have to find. Once you find that balance, once you find what works to you and it starts to feel good, and I mean like genuinely uplifting your soul, taking you out of the low vibrational mindsets to a higher one, that's when you fly. That's when you set sail and really start to enjoy this life, and you feel more powerful and more confident in the choices that you're going to continue to make. So my advice to you after watching this video, if you made it all the way through, thank you, is to step back and examine your life and see what's messed up about it, where you can improve on. Look at the life that you've lived and the choices that you've made that have got you to this point, and figure out how you can take responsibility for those things. Even if somebody else has hurt you, figure out what your part in it was. You know, like, I think that's what sucks the most, is that when somebody hurts us, we have to be the ones to get over it. It's not fair, but life isn't always fair. But you will find ways to do it, and you'll become stronger on top of it. It's like when you break a bone and that bone heals, another layer of protection gets added on, so it's stronger than it was before, if that makes sense. I really wish y'all the best. Again, this book is called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, if you want to read it, about money. And he also has other books too in this series. So yeah, I love y'all. Keep taking responsibility for your actions. Stay above the line and not below it. Okay, y'all stay tuned for my next video. And thank y'all for watching this. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Share it to your mom and them. I ain't got to keep saying this over again. Y'all know what to do. All right.